The Young and the Restless spoilers. The shadows that Kane Ashby has cast over Nice are beginning to stretch long and heavy, suffocating everyone around him as he tightens his grip on both his business ambitions and the darker secrets that fuel his rise. For weeks, Kane has been moving with precision, dismantling rivals, manipulating allies, and cementing his place as a force too dangerous to ignore. His plans, meticulous and ruthless, appeared to be falling into place perfectly, and the fear he inspired among the people of Nice seemed to secure his dominance. Yet, as so often happens in Genoa city lore, when a man believes he has silenced every threat, it is the voice from within his own family that pierces through the lies. The carefully built empire Kane thought he had constructed with cold calculation begins to unravel the moment his own son stands before him, daring to accuse him of crimes too dark to deny. Lily may no longer stand by Kane's side as she once did, but the bond they once shared produced two children, Charlie and Maddie, who remain his legacy whether he embraces them or not. For Kane, Charlie has always been a complicated figure, a son he loved yet struggled to mold, a young man who saw too clearly through his father's endless hunger for success and victory. While Kane tried to frame his ambitions as noble, as necessary for family and stability, Charlie grew up recognizing the dangerous gleam in his father's eyes, the way triumph mattered more than truth, and how conquest mattered more than compassion. That clarity drove a wedge between them long before Kane began his rise in Nice, but now the chasm has widened into a confrontation that neither father nor son can escape. The twist arrives with the sudden and shocking revelation that Charlie has been called to Nice under mysterious circumstances. Kane, who thought he could keep his empire isolated from his family, suddenly finds his son standing in the very heart of his operations, ready to defy him. In the dim light of a room where deals are struck and threats are carried out, Charlie faces his father with a boldness that surprises even Kane. Gone is the boy who once sought approval. In his place stands a young man with evidence in his hands and rage in his voice, accusing his father of murder, demanding that the cycle of terror and fear finally come to an end. Charlie has uncovered what Kane believed he had buried forever, the truth about Cole's death, and now the son threatens to expose the father. For Kane, the moment is both infuriating and devastating. The anger burns first. How dare his son confront him? How dare he betray the blood that ties them together? He lashes out, furious at Charlie's defiance, his mind racing with violent impulses that once would have come naturally. Yet as the seconds stretch and Charlie's eyes remain locked on his own, Kane finds himself paralyzed, not by weakness but by the unbearable weight of fatherhood. The man who has silenced rivals without hesitation cannot silence his own son. The same hands that have schemed and destroyed tremble when faced with the child who refuses to be cowed. Kane sees in Charlie not just rebellion but judgment, a mirror held up to his soul, reflecting everything he has become. Charlie's accusations hit harder than any corporate rival's strategy. With each word, he dismantles the illusion Kane has carefully crafted. He speaks of Cole, of the crime Kane thought forgotten, and holds up evidence that could shatter everything. Charlie's voice, steady but fueled with both pain and courage, demands that Kane stop, that the fear and horror end now. It is not just the law or the world outside that threatens Kane, it is his own family, the one tether he thought he could always manipulate, finally breaking free from his grasp. Charlie's defiance is not only a rejection of his father's empire but a plea for humanity, a reminder that success built on blood is no success at all. The tension escalates as Kane realizes he is trapped. His fury tells him to silence Charlie, to protect his secrets as he has always done, but the part of him that remains a father recoils at the thought. The son who once idolized him is now his greatest enemy, armed not with weapons but with truth. Kane cannot command respect here, cannot use intimidation or fear to bend Charlie's will, because the boy knows him too well. Every lie is transparent, every manipulation stripped away. The man who terrified a city is reduced to a father standing powerless before his son, facing a reckoning he cannot control. For Charlie, the confrontation is both liberation and heartbreak. He has carried the knowledge of his father's crimes in silence, watching as Kane's ambitions consumed him, waiting for the right moment to strike. But standing there, seeing the man who raised him caught between rage and helplessness, he feels the cost of his choice. Exposing Cain means destroying his own father, but protecting him means allowing the darkness to spread unchecked. The decision to speak out is not one of vengeance but of necessity, a desperate attempt to save what little is left of the family he once believed in. His words are not just accusations but a plea for change, though deep down he doubts Cain is capable of redemption. The scene is devastating in its intimacy. Cain, once the predator, is cornered by the one person he cannot destroy. His empire shakes not because of outside enemies but because the son he underestimated has become the conscience he cannot escape. Charlie's presence in Nice becomes the turning point, a reminder that no matter how far Cain runs, no matter how many people he intimidates, the sins of his past will always find him, often in the eyes of those he once thought were loyal. The empire that seemed so unshakable begins to crumble, not from external attack but from the unrelenting truth spoken by his own child. In this confrontation, Cain is forced to grapple with the reality that the fear he instills in others has no power over Charlie. His reputation, his control, his carefully laid plans, all of it shatters in the presence of his son's moral clarity. He can rage, he can threaten, but he cannot undo the fact that Charlie now holds the key to his downfall. Whether Charlie takes that evidence to the authorities, to Victor, to Jill, or to another rival, the damage is already done. Cain's empire has a fracture at its very core, one that no amount of scheming can repair. The fallout from this moment is poised to reshape everything. Will Cain attempt to destroy his son's credibility, casting him as a liar to preserve his own survival? Or will he spiral further, consumed by paranoia and desperation as he realizes his family is no longer his shield but his undoing? Will Charlie have the courage to follow through, knowing that bringing his father down means erasing any chance of reconciliation? The answers remain uncertain, but one thing is clear: Cain's reign of terror in Nice has reached its breaking point, not because of the enemies he fought so hard to defeat, but because of the son who dared to confront him with the truth. Cain Ashby's world, built on ambition, deceit, and blood-stained victories, finally begins to collapse, and the collapse is not caused by his rivals in business or the enemies he has so carefully silenced but by the one person he underestimated the most: his own son. For years Cain cultivated an image of power, wealth, and influence, convincing the world that his success was born of hard work and brilliance. But Charlie's fury strips that illusion bare. The boy who once stood in his father's shadow now stands before the world as a man, and his words cut deeper than any dagger, proclaiming what many suspected but no one dared to speak: Cain is not merely ambitious, he is a criminal, and the rapid fortune he flaunted came not from genius but from ruthless crimes. Charlie's voice becomes the echo of truth that reverberates through Nice, through Genoa City, and through every corner of the Ashby legacy. For Lily, the moment is both heartbreaking and redemptive. She has watched Cain rise and fall before, watched him scheme, betray, and manipulate, and though she tried for years to salvage their marriage and protect their family, she always feared that one day his relentless hunger for power would consume everything. When Charlie finally confronts his father and exposes the truth, Lily rushes to her son, tears flowing freely as she embraces him, no longer the little boy she once tried to shield but a grown man who now shields her. She clings to him as though by holding on she can erase the years of pain and disappointment, whispering her gratitude that he returned to her, that he did not disappear into Cain's shadow but chose instead to stand in the light of his own convictions. For Lily, the reunion is bittersweet. She rejoices in Charlie's strength, but she mourns the family that might have been had Cain chosen love over greed. Charlie himself no longer feels like the lost child who once longed for his father's approval. His confrontation with Cain has hardened him, matured him, forced him into a role he neither sought nor wanted but now accepts as his destiny. He sees clearly now that he cannot undo the past, cannot bring back innocence, cannot change who his father has become. But he can decide the future, and in that decision lies his power. As Cain is dragged away in handcuffs, the echo of his wealth and empire trembling on shaky ground, Charlie stands tall, no longer afraid, no longer hidden. He has transformed from a victim of his father's ambition into the heir of his fortune, not the tainted legacy of crime and deceit, but the opportunity to reshape it, to inherit the ashes and turn them into something new. The irony is cruel. Cain built everything believing it would one day secure his family's loyalty and admiration, yet it is his own downfall that secures his son's future. With Cain now facing prison, Charlie is urged to remain in Nice, to take control of the immense fortune that has been revealed, a fortune Cain acquired through sinister means but one that nonetheless belongs to the Ashby name. The choice is not easy for Charlie, because to inherit is to be forever tied to his father's sins. Yet others urge him to stay, to claim what is rightfully his, to turn a story of horror into one of redemption. The temptation is powerful, for with wealth comes influence, and with influence comes the chance to undo what Cain destroyed. As the arrest unfolds, the fallout ripples outward, shaking even those who believed they had seen everything. Billy Abbott, long acquainted with scandal and betrayal, is stunned as the depth of Cain's depravity comes into focus. He knew Cain was ambitious, even ruthless, but the sheer scale of his crimes leaves him speechless. Jill Abbott, who has lived long enough to witness countless schemes and collapses, is equally shaken. She had suspected Cain's hands were not clean, but watching him taken away in chains, realizing that murder and manipulation were not whispers but truths, forces her to confront the reality that Cain's ambition was never just business but bloodthirst. Together Billy and Jill share a silent acknowledgement that the world they inhabit will never truly be safe from men like Cain, men who believe success can justify anything. Yet for all the shock, there is a strange sense of justice in Cain's downfall. The people of Nice, once paralyzed by fear, begin to breathe again. The whispers that followed him in every shadow turn into open condemnation. Those who once bowed to his power now speak his name with disdain, their fear transformed into relief. Cain, the man who terrorized them into silence, is reduced to a prisoner, his empire dismantled piece by piece. The sight of him behind bars becomes a symbol, a reminder that even the most powerful can fall when the truth is finally spoken. For Lily, the road ahead is uncertain. She has her son back, and she has the chance to rebuild, but the scars of Cain's betrayal run deep. She cannot erase the years of pain, nor can she deny that her children will always carry the shadow of their father's crimes. Yet seeing Charlie stand tall, strong, and unafraid gives her hope that the cycle can end, that the Ashby name can mean something more than greed and destruction. Her tears are not only for what has been lost but for what might finally be gained, a future where her children no longer have to apologize for their father's sins. Charlie, though, shoulders the heaviest burden. He must decide whether to stay in Nice, to embrace the vast fortune his father has left behind, or to walk away, rejecting wealth tainted by blood. The choice is not merely about money but about identity. If he stays, he risks being consumed by the same hunger that destroyed Cain. If he leaves, he risks abandoning the chance to make amends for what his father did. But the decision is his alone, and for the first time in his life, Cain has no power to dictate it. The son has become the master of his own fate, and the father who once loomed over him is left to rot in a prison cell, raging at a world that finally saw through his lies. Cain's imprisonment does not erase the horror of his reign, nor does it undo the crimes he committed, but it marks the end of a chapter and the beginning of something new. For Genoa City, for Nice, for Lily, for Billy, for Jill, and most of all for Charlie, the story is not just about the fall of a man but about the resilience of those he tried to destroy. Charlie's courage becomes the catalyst for change, proving that even in a world built on deceit and fear, truth can still triumph when spoken by those brave enough to confront it. And though Cain may scream his innocence, though he may plot revenge from behind bars, the empire he built has crumbled, and the legacy he tried to pass on has been rewritten by the son who refused to be silent.